The poster is everywhere. The sprint, the grin, Ewan McGregor as Renton, old shaved head charm, and spiritual rot. Robert Carlyle's Bigby, waiting somewhere in the background like violence with a pulse. The skinny bodies and cigarettes. The bathroom that is somehow more iconic than anything that actually happens inside of it. The Choose Life monologue on dorm walls, printed on t-shirts, looping on YouTube compilations. Iggy Pop's Lust for Life still making collapse sound like forward motion. Underworld's Born Slippy, still turning the ending into something close to release. The 4K restoration is headed back to US theaters on June 5th, 2026, 30 years after the film announced itself like a car crash at a dinner party. Every generation finds a new way to make Trainspotting look cool. The movie keeps waiting for someone to notice how ugly the coolness is. The version people usually keep is simpler. Trainspotting as refusal. Refuse the job, refuse the mortgage, refuse the washing machine, refuse the dead-eye checklist of adulthood. Renton opts out. He uses heroin. He lives at the edge, and the edge looks, from a certain distance, like freedom. That reading gets you through the poster. It doesn't get you through the ending, because Trainspotting does not end with Renton refusing normal life. It ends with him stealing money from his friends, walking away from the people who know exactly who he is, and stepping into a future that looks, from a certain angle, a lot like normal life after all. Trainspotting is dangerous because it makes betrayal feel reasonable. And the reason it can do that is because it makes you understand Renton before it lets you judge him. So keep your eye on the ending, not just what Renton does, but how quickly the movie teaches you to accept it. Because by the time Renton takes the money, the movie has done the dirty work for him. It has made the betrayal feel like the only way out. This is Trainspotting. The ending to the film only works because the movie splits the audience in half. Part of us knows Renton has done something rotten. Another part of us is relieved he finally did it. By the end, the final smile should look different. The closing voiceover should sound different. The envelope under Spud's door should feel different. Not because the facts changed, the theft is still the theft, but because the film has spent 90 minutes making sure you're standing close enough to Renton that his logic starts to feel like our logic. He doesn't escape because he cleans up. He escapes because he learns how to betray people and calls it growing up. The film calls it choosing life, which lets Renton dress the theft up as adulthood. So look at the ending first, because that is where the cool version of Trainspotting finally runs out of road. The drug deal goes through, the money's in the bag, Bigby's asleep, Sick Boy is asleep, Spud is asleep. Renton takes it all. He leaves a cut for Spud, slid under the door, a small mercy for the one person, as Renton himself narrates, who never hurt anybody. Then he walks out. The camera follows him across a bridge in London, morning light, the city opening up. The voiceover returns. Not the mocking version from the opening, but a new one. Slower, folding Renton back into the very language he once spat at. Job, career, compact disc player. He is listening to things he used to mock, and now they sound like a plan. The final image is the smile. He looks directly at the camera, and he looks free. The scene doesn't ask you to sit with the betrayal. It gives you movement first. Mourning first, music first, escape first. Judgment comes last, if it comes at all. The film stages this as liberation. The editing, the music, the morning light, all of it moves faster than our judgment. But the ending is built on theft, abandonment, and self-rebranding. He bought his future with stolen money. He left the one innocent person to wake up and figure it out. He walked away from everyone who could identify the version of him that existed before the news story started. The movie lets Renton buy a future with stolen money, then asks why that future suddenly looks so much like maturity. That gap between the feeling of the ending and what it's actually made of is the entire point of the film. Renton doesn't like his life. That much is clear from minute one. The film never lets heroin stay romantic for long. The high curdles, the joke becomes a withdrawal, the room starts to stink. Then the baby's dead. The degradation isn't hidden. It is put on screen in full, sometimes horrifying, sometimes funny, which somehow makes it worse. But heroin also does something for Renton. It gives him escape, rhythm, and a kind of belonging the straight world has never offered him. His friends are not just bad influences. They are the room he keeps getting pulled back into. Getting clean isn't only a chemical process. It means cutting himself loose from the people, habits, jokes, rooms, and excuses that have been holding him together for years. So Renton is caught between two versions of the same problem. The life he's in is destroying him. The life he's supposed to want looks, from where he's standing, like a different kind of slow death. Renton wants out. The problem is that every exit makes him someone he hates. The trap has faces: Begbie, Sick Boy, Spud, Tommy, Diane. Renton's problem isn't that he has bad friends. That actually would be easier. His problem is that the people poisoning him are also the people who know him best. Betrayal as survival. That is the ending. A dirty exit from people who still have a claim on him. Begbie doesn't use heroin. He doesn't need to. He turns other people's pain into proof that he exists. There's a moment where Boyle freezes a beer glass in midair before it comes down on an innocent woman below. It's horrible and somehow always funny. And that combination is the film's shorthand for everything Begbie is. Violence as performance, cruelty as identity, danger as constant weather. You can't be at peace while Begbie is in your orbit. Leaving him feels necessary. The theft still feels dirty because the exit is a theft and not just an exit. Sick Boy is Renton's mirror with worse ethics and better hair. He is witty enough to seem self-aware, cynical enough to metabolize everything into a hustle. When Renton comes off heroin, Sick Boy quits also, purely to spite him, to convert Renton's attempt at recovery into a competition. He can't let Renton even have the gesture of change without contaminating it. Leaving Sick Boy feels necessary because he will corrupt the exits. Betraying him still feels dirty because Renton is not morally opposite to Sick Boy. He's just a better finisher. Spud is the wound in the ending that doesn't close. He's gentle, hapless, the one figure in the group who could plausibly be described as innocent. Renton's own voiceover names him the one who never hurt anybody. And Renton steals from him anyhow. The envelope under the door is the movie trying to soften the blow. But leaving money after betrayal isn't innocence. Renton knows exactly who least deserves to be abandoned and abandon him anyway. Spud is the most moral test of the ending, and the ending fails it, softly, with cash. T2 makes the gesture even uglier. The money doesn't save Spud, it helps bury him deeper. Tommy is proof that the group has a blast radius. He starts outside the heroin world, functional, in a relationship, the one who used to stand apart from the damage. Then Renton steals the sex tape Tommy made with his girlfriend. Casual, funny in the moment, catastrophic in effect. Tommy's relationship breaks. He drifts towards the orbit he used to stand outside. Then heroin, HIV, and neglect finish what the joke started. Tommy matters because he proves you don't have to be a junkie to be pulled into the damage. You just have to be close enough when the joke stops being funny. His funeral doesn't change Renton. They bury him and then go straight to planning the deal. Tommy becomes evidence, not transformation, and Renton helped put him there long before the money entered the picture. Diane is younger than Renton, and yet somehow already more adult. That is what humiliates him. She doesn't treat his lifestyle like danger, she treats it like immaturity. She tells him to grow up, points out that the world is changing, and his brand of rebellion is adolescent theater. Renton can leave Edinburgh, but he can't claim nobody saw through him first. The smartest thing John Hodges' screenplay does is put choose life first. Before we know Renton, before we know the damage, before we know the betrayal, we hear the sales pitch he claims to reject. In the beginning, it sounds like a rebellion. Renton runs through the consumer checklist. Job, career, family, big television, washing machine, car, compact disc player, and sneers at all of it. The film takes a phrase that once sounded bright and turns it sour. The speech lands as anti-establishment electricity, a refusal of the whole package of respectable adulthood. The audience cheers, or at least understands. The opening monologue sounds like rebellion when the movie starts. By the end, it sounds like Renton reading the terms and conditions of his own surrender. The things he mocks become the costume he eventually accepts. The final voiceover does not simply repeat the opening sneer. It mutates. Renton folds himself back into the language of career and consumer goods. He lists them again, but now as a plan instead of a joke. Same checklist, different man reading it. He doesn't choose life because he believes in it. He chooses it because it gives him somewhere to hide from the people who still know him. This is the part of Choose Life, the poster, doesn't sell. The version where it's not defiance, but camouflage. Renton is not only running from what he did, he's running from the people who can still look at him and see it. The hardest people to leave are not always the dangerous ones. Sometimes the hardest people to leave are the ones who remember you too clearly. Renton's friends are awful. They are also intimate. They know the scams, the relapses, the humiliations, the jokes that not only work because everyone in the room was there. They remember the version of him before he learned how to sell a much cleaner story. Guilt is about what you did. Shame is about who can still see it. And the witnesses to the old story are not just inconvenient, they're threatening. They can identify the old version. They can still tell it. Reinvention often requires geography. New city, new job, new life. But it also requires leaving behind the people still holding the memories you are trying to abandon. Sometimes the people you need gone from your life are not people you hate. They are people who remember too much. That is the part no one wants to say out loud. Renton is trying to build a new self out of distance. The old one still has witnesses. What the film understands, and what the poster usually leaves out, is that becoming new is not always growth. Sometimes it's about erasure. Renton is not becoming better. He's becoming someone the old version can't follow. The film is really good at making you forgive Renton before you have time to judge him. Bigby is so genuinely terrifying that leaving him feels like self-preservation. It's hard to argue with "I left to survive." Sick Boy is so transparently amoral that betraying him feels like fair play. He would have done the same. Spud gets money, which lets the audience breathe a small sigh of relief. The final voiceover gives Renton's betrayal the language of adulthood, which is the film's cleverest move. It makes the theft sound like maturity. And then there's Ewan McGregor. Without McGregor, the ending probably collapses. He has the face and timing and fourth wall intimacy that makes Renton feel like someone who understands his situation better than most people understand anything. The camera-facing grin at the very beginning tells you the film will refuse obedient naturalism. Renton is the guide. He's charming, he sees the trap, we trust him. And because we trust him, we absorb his narration of the ending as reasonable. Sick Boy would have done the same. Spud never hurt anybody, paired with the money. I'm gonna be just like you. The film gives him the language of insight long before it gives him the ethics to match. Then time does the rest. The slogan became a poster, the poster became a mood, the soundtrack became a playlist. 30 years of circulation have buffed the edges off the moral ugliness until what remains is mostly style. The movie knows exactly where the dirt is. The audience learned to look at the poster instead. The film gives us enough reasons to forgive Renton before we have time to judge him. It knows exactly what it's doing. The uncomfortable part is how familiar this feels. The betrayal works because it touches something familiar. No, not heroin, not that specific situation, but the desire to disappear from the people who know who you were before you figured out how to hold yourself together. There are people who don't hate but still need gone from your life because they remember too much. The old friend you slowly stopped calling because their version of you was a version you were trying to retire. The failure that still defines you to certain people who refuse to update the file. The hometown where everyone has the old story locked in and can't imagine a different one. Renton's betrayal bothers us because it's not alien. It's a more extreme version of a bargain people make all the time. I will become someone new, and I will stop answering to the people who remember who I was. The film doesn't let Renton off. The narration confesses the selfishness directly. He knows he's a bad person, but it is asking something of the audience at the same time. Do you understand why he did it? Most people do, and the film knows that. That is what makes it linger. Not the style, not the soundtrack. The fact that the worst thing the main character does is also the thing we quietly recognize. Trainspotting arrived in 1996 at a very specific intersection. On the surface, it was part of Britpop. Blur, Pulp, Underworld on the soundtrack, Cool Britannia in the cultural air, the sense that British style was suddenly exportable and modern and something to be proud of. The film got swept into that feeling. The British Film Institute ranked it 10th on its top 100 British films list, and it makes sense. Few British films have ever turned national rot into exportable cool this efficiently. But the story it is actually telling is post-Thatcher despair given a Britpop soundtrack. Deindustrialized Leith, the Edinburgh heroin and HIV crisis, young men with no futures performing their own dissolution, a country selling cool while the film shows young men rotting in the places that confidence forgot. That tension, the cool surface, the rot underneath, is why the film never stops circulating. Every revival strips out the rot and keeps the cool. The poster returns. The monologue gets detached from the ending. The 4K restoration lands in 2026 into a culture that has already been cycling back towards 1990s aesthetics for years. The conditions for renewed Trainspotting circulation are clearly there. Trainspotting has become one of the images people return to when they want 90s collapse to look stylish. The movie keeps waiting for someone to notice how ugly the coolness actually is. The internet knows how to keep the beautiful parts and lose the invoice. A filthy room becomes lighting. A ruined person becomes a pose. A warning becomes a look. A film about ruined people becomes a mood board. And that is not a young people problem. Every era does this. Every generation turns somebody else's breakdown into its own aesthetic once enough time has passed and the original pain belongs to someone else. Distance makes things safe to consume without absorbing what they cost. Trainspotting survived because it understands a feeling people are still afraid to say out loud. Sometimes the life you are supposed to want looks less like salvation than defeat. The job, the car, the mortgage, the social script. The opening monologue still lands because the trap it describes is still real. People still recognize it. But the film refuses to let the rebellion stay pure. It shows what Renton's rebellion actually costs. It shows who pays for it. The opening makes refusal feel clean. The ending shows what Renton is actually willing to do for it. Renton's solution is not heroic. It is escape through betrayal. The movie keeps asking why we understand it so quickly. So come back to the ending. Watch it again with the whole movie behind it. The smile, the walk across the bridge, the money in the bag and the envelope under the door. The final voiceover listing the things he once spat at, now recited as a plan. What did Renton choose? He chose distance. He chose the right to stop explaining himself. He chose a future where the people who remember the worst version of him are no longer close enough to interrupt the new story. Renton does choose life. That is the part people soften because the life he chooses is not healing. It's not moral clarity. It's not some clean arrival into adulthood. He chose a cleaner story built on a dirty choice. Look at the money. Look at Spud. Look at the smile. Look at how quickly we forgave him. That is why Trainspotting still feels dangerous 30 years later. It doesn't say heroin is freedom. It says freedom might require betrayal you can live with. And that is the scariest thing about Renton. He can live with it. Want more breakdowns like this? Films that look one way on the surface then get uglier the longer you stare at them? Subscribe to our channel, The Prism. This channel is about meaning, mystery, and madness in movies. The psychology, the culture, the craft, and the things a film tells you before you realize you heard it. And if this video changed how you see Trainspotting, leave a comment with the moment you think the movie gives Renton permission to walk away. I'll see you on the next one, but in the meantime, as always, please take care of yourself.